Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for making the time for this wonderful session. My name is Tunguz. I'm a partner at Redpoint Ventures. We're a venture firm with about $3.5 billion in assets under management. I focus on early stage software investments, and we're fortunate enough to work with a lot of great software companies, including Twilio, Stripe, Zendesk, Looker, Infer, and Zuora. And as Anthony mentioned, I'm really passionate about customer success. I write about it extensively on tomtunguz.com. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about customer success is that we see firsthand as board members for these software companies the importance of customer success. And some of our initial research has shown that customer success is incredibly important because it's often the most significant determinant of a company's valuation, more so even than growth. But one of the biggest challenges of customer success is figuring out how to scale and grow and recruit a customer success team. And so today, I'm really excited to welcome two leaders in this field. The first is Boaz Maor, who's the VP of Customer Success at Mashery. And the second is Mike, who's the SVP of Customer Success at Rapid7. So just to do a quick introduction of our two panelists today, Boaz is the VP of Customer Success at Mashery, which was acquired by Intel in 2013. Boaz founded and grew the team to about 60 people, and he's been able to achieve some notable results, including expanding the customer success programs by 60% and reducing churn to a remarkable 0.5% per month. Before Mashery, Boaz was VP of Sales and Marketing at WaveGuard, an early-stage clean tech startup in Israel. And before that, he was VP of Customer Success at NewScale, which was acquired by Cisco in 2011. Mike is the SVP of Customer Success at Rapid7. He oversees a team of about 150 people. Before taking this position in 2015, he was the SVP of Services and Support and Planning. And before Rapid7, he was working at PTC, the makers of Pro-E, in a variety of different finance, sales, and operational roles around the world. And before that, he was at Highwired, Broadview, McKinsey, and Goldman. He was also a professional hockey player and played 150 games. So thank you, gentlemen, both for joining us for this session. I think it'd be great to just jump right into the slides. And Boaz, I think you're first.
And he kept all his teeth. So good morning, good afternoon. 3:20 p.m., not the best session timing, right? This is when food from lunch sinks in and people start to doze off. We'll try to keep you awake for just a little bit. My name is Boaz. I run the customer success team at Mashery, which is a business unit at Intel right now. And this is the agenda I want to cover. A little bit of a background about Mashery, who we are, what we do, so you can put things in perspective, and then give a case study, literally 3 slides, on how we structured the customer success team, what were the foundations behind the decisions we make to structure it the way we structure it, and then try to extract from that some best practices for you in literally 3 slides on things that you can take for your jobs and implement. So let's go quickly into it. I believe we're here because we believe that in order to get the best results, we need to structure our team in a thoughtful way. It's not just we hire people and we let them go. We want the right roles, the right structure, kind of a chess game. Mashery is an API management company, which means we help companies manage their APIs, which is, for those who don't know, application programming interface is the way a software requests and receives information from another software. This is predominantly was used in mobile devices. And if you think about today's world, what used to be connected device in the past, different types of computing, has now turned into just about everything. And because everything is getting connected, those everythings need APIs to get information to them. That's why we're in business helping those companies get this information. The reason why APIs is the best means to deliver this information to those applications is because applications, unlike search, grant wishes. You don't search for something and then refine your search. Your app knows what you want and gets you directly to where the kind of data you want to get. Here is one simple example. If you want to search for a movie on a movie app and you select a piece of information about it, you'll start to see different pieces of data that are specific to what you want. These pieces of data, if you think about it, sits within the database. There are different types of data. They all sit in the database of your company. And what you want is to enable a means for some application out there, your application, your customer's application, a partner's application, to get access into this data so they can present it on all kinds of devices. That layer that makes this happen is APIs, and this is what we are helping customers to manage. We are predominantly, and this is why the background is important so you understand the background from which I'm talking to you, we are predominantly a business-to-business, enterprise-level type company, so the kind of companies that you see here in the different industries, travel, retail, financial services, healthcare, industrial, are predominantly large companies, although we do have small and medium-sized customers as well. Wonderful background, let's get into it. So the way we structured the customer success team is based on one fundamental belief that we had, which is takeaway number one. If you don't believe this statement, then we're not talking the same language. If you believe this statement and your CEO does not, you should move to another place. But we believe that in the end of the day, the company, and therefore the team, the customer success team, is likely to be more successful the more value we can create to our customers. This is not how much value we create to us, that's secondary, it's how much value we deliver to our customers. And therefore, the primary goal that we have for our team is to maximize value our customers derive from our solutions. And the two secondary roles are maximize the value we can get from our customers, monetarily and non-monetarily. So there's a primary and secondary roles there. Consequently, the first question that comes to mind is, okay, so what is that value to the customer? How do you measure that? And this is a simplistic way to look at that. Think about the volume of the cube as the value to the customer, and I'd like to suggest that there are three primary dimensions that determine that. The first one is the program scope. Think about it as the what. If you have an order form, the line items on that order form. Obviously, the more services and solutions your customers get from you, the more likely it is that you deliver more value to them. The second dimension is the how, the program execution. If you sold the customer everything and you weren't able to implement, or you were able to implement, but there are lots of service disruptions, availability problems, performance problems, the value is minimized. But then there's a third dimension, which is, as normally things are, the hardest to measure, and this is the why. Why are the customer using your solution? Think about it this way. You sold them everything you have. You implemented it perfectly, and there are no service disruptions. But because of the lack of strategy or thinking or planning on the customer side or yours, the result is cannibalization of the customer revenue stream from other product. You might create a wonderful lots of waste as opposed to lots of value. So you do need to connect to the why. Why does the customer use your solution? The way we structure the customer success team at Mashery is to address these three dimensions. So the first team that we have inside is the professional services. The professional services team is predominantly looking at two dimensions. The what, they are helping the customer define what services and solutions they need from us, and the how, they help implement. They make decisions about configurations and settings that help the customer maximize the value they get from whatever they bought from us. The second team is the technical support services, which takes over from the professional services team the ongoing technical management of the customer deployment. They are making sure that the availability, stability, performance are maximized. But they also, predominantly because we are a multi-tenant SaaS environment, so we have a finger on the pulse with everything the customer really do with our solutions, they can get a very good insight into why the customer is using or why there are problems. And by looking at that why, that developer is starting to get rogue calls, that setting on the customer side is deviating, et cetera, they can help advise the customers on how to better align their product and their program into driving more value to them. The third team we call Customer Program Success Management. It's a mouthful, but we try to differentiate from account management or any other terms like that. By the way, how many people in the room use account managers or refer to their customers as accounts? Okay, you might have noticed English is not my first language. In my mind, an account is an entity in the bank that you get money in and out of. I'd like to think about our customers as different than that. So that one of the first things we have done at Mashery is we named customers, not account, and we call the people who manage them customer managers, not account managers. I think words matter, so that's part of it. The customer program success managers are responsible for two facets of that cube, right? One is the program scope. They are working on not only the renewals, but also the expansion, the add-ons to the customer program, so they're influencing the what. What should you use from our solution? But their primary area of focus is the why. They are the ones that maintain the business relation between us and our customers, so they can help the customer fine-tune what they're using us for with business value to them. They conduct quarterly reviews with their management, they engage other units, they do evaluations of the deployment, etc., etc. This team is reporting to the CEO. I think this is quite important. You'll see lots of options out there for reporting structures. I think a lot of what we are talking throughout today and probably tomorrow is this team really needs to be at the CEO level to make an impact, and that's the way we have it here. We are structured, as you can see on the bottom, professional services, technical support, customer management. We split customer management, by the way, regionally, because in some regions around the world, Europe and Asia in particular, it's important to have more face time, so that's part of the determination inside. Beyond that, it's mostly industry-based because fundamentally we want to force our people to understand the business of their customers, so we align them not geographically, but rather industry-wise. There's one more team there that you can see on the right-hand side called Knowledge Services. The idea behind Knowledge Services is twofold. One, we all live in a knowledge-intensive environment, right? We deal with software solutions, with customers, not with hardware, and therefore we want to build tools and capabilities to help us and our customers do their job better. So that we have a team that's responsible for training, knowledge assets, community management, etc. All right, a few best practices. So step number one, you probably want to start by developing a plan for what the future is going to look like. What do you want your future state to be when it comes to customer success? How do you want your team to look like? What kind of roles you want to see 2 years from now, etc. I very strongly suggest not to start by analyzing where you are today, rather start with where you want to go. When you start with today, your mind gets oriented to the challenges to change. It's much better to start with where you want your team to be in the future. So this is designing the future state. Only then you need to assess where you are today, and then you need to talk about, okay, so how do I get from today to tomorrow and manage ongoingly? Obviously, this is not linear. This is a circular state because you want to improve all the time. But again, the takeaway here is start with the future, not with the present. I'm not going to talk about organizational design. There are lots of resources out there. This is one example. There are endless amount of information out there that you can go into to get best practices, plans, etc. for organizational design. All I'm going to say is 3 best practices. One, your organization design for customer success needs to match the company DNA. You can't go against the stream too much. You can't deviate too much. It's good to be slightly different if you're very passionate about and stretch your company and help the company evolve. But if your vision for what you want to do is too different from the rest of the organization, is too different from what your CEO or your founders would like it to be, it's likely to not succeed. So bear in mind, it needs to be consistent with your company DNA. Second, acknowledge that like everything else, it will evolve over time. You're probably not going to have the budget, the means, the time to get into your future state in one, so you need to develop some kind of a path forward, moving along from where you are today to where the future is, and it's okay to evolve over time. You need to understand where you want to get to, but take steps towards that direction. The last one, if you think about the previous slide with all of those fancy models that you can get from consultants or the education community, schools and books and whatever, those those really give you options. They can help you clarify the options for your design, right? It can help you narrow down the pros and cons so you can understand what's better or not in your organizational design. But really the decisions among those options need to be made based on the individuals you have in the specific roles, right? For example, the very fundamental decision a lot of us are looking into day in and day out around should customer success include renewals or not, should customer success include add-ons and expansion or not, depends a lot on the identity and characteristics of your VP of sales. Not only who you are and what your team does, but also the other side. The scope, the breadth of support or training or documentation depends on the identity and characteristics and wants of your VP of engineering or VP of product. So you need to align yourself with other people, and I think the concept of get your options based on theory, but make decisions based on people is probably the best practice I would advise. Once you've defined your future state, you need to hire towards that state, right? Fill up the positions with the right people, and again, 4 easy best practices. One, obviously, hire people that fit your character, right? The kind of people you want to have. Second, and this is just maybe a pet peeve of mine, but the negative feedback I like to hear the most when I get feedback from people on interviews, right? When we interview people, we normally have between 7 and 10 people that interview a candidate, and then we do a debrief around that candidate to decide are they good enough or not. And whenever I hear a comment, this person is overqualified, that to me is a signify that this person is a good hire, right? Hire the best people you can, especially if you're a young company and growing company. Hire the best people you can, challenge them. If they grow into other positions down the road, that's a wonderful thing, whether it's inside your organization or in adjunct organizations. Never pass on a good person just because they're too good for the role. Change the role and hire the good person. The last thing is, the third thing is hire so 1 + 1 = 3. My first hire when I joined Mashery into the customer management organization, for example, was a person that we moved from the sales team and was a junior account manager. We then added to that person, my first external hire was a woman that I knew from previous life that had a very strong sales background. So now I had someone with account management background and someone from a sales background. So the third person I brought in had a very strong program management in IT. And the fourth person had very technical background. And the fifth person had a management consulting background. And the idea there very purposely was every person in the team obviously need to meet a certain bar of requirements for the job, but I also want them to have some kind of a spike that adds value to the team beyond their current job, right? Over time, we started to add people with specific domain expertise to add to the quality of the team from that dimension. And I think that's very valuable. The fourth one is the item that's hardest to measure, but probably the most important, that's passion for customer success, right? You'll bring people from different backgrounds into your organization. They all need to share, if you want that passion, right? What keeps them at night is not whether they lost the deal or the technical specificity was not good enough, but rather, is the customer suffering or enjoying, right? And if what they love is the customer success aspect of it, they're likely to figure out the rest and be good for you. The ongoing management, this is maybe a takeaway slide. I won't spend too much time on it, but if you think about kind of my management 101, if you want, for my team, the way I think about the ongoing management, it's people, goals, trust and communication. You hire the best people. You give them as clear goals as possible so they know what you expect from them. If they know what you expect from them, what are the outcome metrics, then you don't need to tell them what to do. They're smart, they're good, they're experienced, and you tell them what to do. They'll figure it out. Then your job becomes building the environment that helps them do the kind of job you want them to do, and that's around trust and communication. Trust is about enabling them the confidence to focus on their job because they trust the other teams to do theirs, right? If you're in your job as a customer success manager and you can't get around the fact that engineering is not delivering or the sales is not selling the right deals or whatever other team's fault, you never focus on your job, you worry about theirs. If you're confident and you trust that the other teams are doing their job, you can focus on yours. Communication is the means to make that happen. Over-communication around the team internally and among the team and other teams is the way to share that knowledge so trust can be created.
Great, thanks so much for that perspective, Boaz. It's a terrific overview of how you built the customer success team at Mashery. Now to hear a slightly different take on how to build a large, successful organization, here's Mike.
Thanks very much, Tomasz, and thank you, Boaz. All right, so once again, my name is McKee. I'm from Rapid7. Rapid7 is a company in the security data analytics space. And one thing we talk about as it pertains to customer success is creating security heroes. And this is something that when I moved into the position heading up customer success, I thought I would lead by example. So last year, this is Halloween, this isn't day-to-day, but it's something that we do take very seriously, occasionally try to dress like the security heroes that we're trying to create with our customers. As I said, Rapid7 is in the security, data, and analytics space. We effectively do two things. We help companies understand their threat exposure, and we help when they've been compromised. So if you use the metaphor of a house, we tell you what windows are open and which windows you should be closing, and if there's anybody inside. And we fortunately have a lot of hackers on the payroll and attackers, so not only do we have products, but we have services that, like I said, help companies understand their threat exposure and when they've been compromised. We're based in Boston. It's much warmer out here, which is very nice. We're about 600 people now, 3,700 customers. Most of those customers right now are in North America, and they span all industries and all sizes. Okay, on to the topic of the day. So Dan Steinberg, I think in the first rule on the Bessemer Top 10 Rules for Customer Success, talked about the importance of company top-down commitment. And Boaz said earlier, if your CEO isn't behind customer success, you have a problem. It's absolutely essential. And there's many different organization structures out there and roles and responsibilities, but it absolutely, in my mind, has to start at the top, and there has to be broad commitment to customer success across the organization. So when we were getting going in 2015, those are nice words and stuff like that, but we put it in the context of numbers. And about a third of our business, and I should say that we're a combination between perpetual and maintenance and SaaS. So we have both models that we're managing, but about a third of our business is renewals, obviously driven by customer success. About a third of our business is upsells and cross-sells to existing customers, also driven by customer success. And then when working with sales, I'm a huge believer that the number one selling tool out there is stories. And once again, that's driven by customer success. So these are slides I showed at our sales kickoff. These are slides I use a lot that are very basic at one level, but super important to get that organizational commitment around customer success. So moving to the topic around organizing and structuring a customer success organization. In 2014, last year, we were much more traditionally structured, where you have human resources and finance and marketing and sales and international sales, services, support, products, as you can read. And one of the big moves we made in 2015 to focus even more on customer success and move more into this land and expand model is to consolidate a bunch of different areas within what we call the services and customer success function, with a mandate to really operationalize the growth of customers and really make sure that we're driving customer success across all different sizes of companies. So what's a little bit different in this function is we also have sales engineering. And the neat part about this is our CEO can hold me much more accountable for customer success if our group has a hand in the sales process. We can't just say, hey, we got served up a bunch of garbage by the sales guys, there's nothing we can do, expectations were set the wrong way, because we have some sales engineers that were part of that. So without a doubt, sales engineering's number one objective is to help drive new bookings and support sales. But one of the shifts that we've tried to enforce this year is don't just sell the product, but try to set that customer up for success. So a very small portion of their variable compensation scheme in sales engineering is now on ACV renewals. It's once again, it's like 10%, 90% still on new bookings, but this whole idea of signaling to them the importance of, like I said, setting the customers up for success is very important. On the professional services side, many services organizations are all wired around go live, meet all the requirements in the statement of work, check all the boxes, and you're done. What we're really trying to shift there is this focus much more towards usage, not just implementation. And the services organization needs to be understanding, we have a program success scorecard that goes with a lot of the engagements that we do, and they need to be thinking about how the organization is going to use our software in practice, not just plug it in and integrate to the other applications that are there. The actual customer success management organization, I'll talk about a little bit more in a couple of slides, but as I said, the majority of our business is still perpetual with maintenance. So historically, their primary focus was renewals. It still is, but what we're trying to do is shift the focus from renewals minus 90 days to purchase plus 90 days. So once again, the whole focus of the renewals organization in the past is, hey, the maintenance renewal is coming due in 30 or 60 days. I better send the invoice out there. We want to try to be much more proactive, and we've really bolstered the onboarding capabilities. We've really bolstered the usage metrics that we're getting, so that we're being proactive and we're driving adoption, with the basic assumption being that retention and renewals and expansion will follow. And then finally, our technical support organization, which once again is your typical global technical support organization. We've added this learning and support. So we get 20,000 calls a year from our customers. That's 20,000 opportunities, not just to help them with the problem that they had, or log a bug, or request for enhancement, or whatever it might be, but it's 20,000 opportunities to tell them how to use the software. So we've been trying to move their mindset from product mastery to product usage mastery. And once again, take advantage of all those customer touch points that we have in our technical support organization to really help customers learn and adopt the software. This is our internal who's who in the zoo slide, which we've used externally with customers. Once again, kind of going back to that top-down company commitment to customer success. It's very important here. The words are delicate because sales wants to be the owner. Sales wants to be the quarterback. And sales or account executive, you can see here, still is. And that's why we use the word relationship lead. And the whole idea is that sales with sales engineering brings the customers in. You then introduce your customer success manager, and you say, hi, this is our customer success manager. They're responsible for helping you drive adoption and making you successful. You can still call me the sales guy if you want, but your customer success manager is going to be a whole lot more useful in driving that adoption and making sure you're using it and getting value from the software. And then right now, if there is upsell and cross-sell, it goes back to the account executive. This will kind of go into conversations that I'm sure we'll all have this week around, do we really need the full cost of sales of going back to the sales? It's something we're debating. Once again, we're evolving in this direction right now. We didn't want to change too much too quickly, so right now it still goes back to sales. But I can certainly see a day, and I don't see any Rapid7 salespeople in here, I can certainly see a day where at least the upsell stays with the customer success manager. Maybe if it's cross-sell of a new product, that goes back to sales. So once again, that's an evolution that I think that we'll be undertaking. One of the key points here are the yellow arrows. Once again, having the company-wide mindset around customer success and making sure you're transferring information between the different groups, absolutely essential. We're trying to get better and better systems to do that, but it's one of the things that allows, I believe, customers to go in and go through that adoption, retention, expansion phases. Key learning number 2, and this, I kind of gave a prelude to this in the last description of what's the right balance between efforts on adoption versus retention versus expansion. Because our customer success management team still has a very big renewals number that they have to hit. So, oh yeah, this is a fancy slide. You ready for this? Oopsie. Not that fancy. I'm just going to go behind the stage now and disappear for a second. We had a computer crash, apparently. So I can tell a story about this morning. I was taking a cab from the airport after flying in from Boston, and I'm kind of in a hurry to check in and stuff like that and get to the conference and stuff. All right, we'll come back to this. And I'm in the cab, I'm waiting, I'm getting kind of impatient. I couldn't use Uber and stuff like that. And the guy's like, my cab's rebooting. And he starts taking my luggage out of the back and my stuff out of the back. I'm like, buddy, what are you doing? And he's like, I got to reboot my computer. I got to reboot my car. So I figured I must be in California. I got out of the car and went to the next cab. Anyways, the slide's back. I've really built expectations for it. So we shifted this year from renewals to adoption. Don't start going crazy on me again, please. I can hear noises over here talking to an empty headset. If you could go back a couple of slides, please, that would be great. I'm not sure who I'm speaking to, but there we go. Seems to be working. As I said, this renewals plus 90 days, purchase plus 90 days versus renewals minus 90 days. Okay. Back one slide, please. Thank you. So we changed the name of the organization from account management to customer success management. And small little nuance here. We didn't call it the customer success organization because our CEO wanted to make sure that all functions within the company feel responsible for customer success. We specifically call it the customer success management organization, which, as I said, it's a subtle difference, but I think it's a meaningful difference. We tried to align it exactly like sales. We align by customer size, enterprise, name, mid-market. Here's some of the gory details that Tom was going to ask me about later in terms of compensation structures. The majority of the team still focused on the renewal. You'll see on the next slide their time allocation is shifting. They leverage the global learning and support organization a lot for technical needs. And you can see the numbers around base variable mix. And the bottom bullet point on here I think is an interesting one, which is 80% of their variable bonus is still based on renewals, and 20% is based on leads to sales. So to put that in a time context, and once again, this is an evolution. So last year was sort of 20, 70, 10, if we have to break that down between adoption, retention, and expansion. And I would say we're evolving more towards this 35, 55, 10. As I said, in the future, as we get better through this onboarding and adoption, more time might go towards the expansion. But right now, we're really trying to drive those onboarding and adoption activities early in the cycle. And I put that out there just because I think it's very important organizationally, not just within the customer success team, but across the organization to make sure people are aware of these things. So just last week, we were in a meeting with our SVP of products, the person who heads up our R&D, and we were going through this with them. And part of the reason we were doing that is we were impressing upon him the importance of building functionality into the product so that we could see usage, so we could see what features the customers were using. And once again, if you don't do those kinds of things, product guys will be thinking about the releases and they'll be thinking about the requests for enhancements, and they might not appreciate the extent to which really being able to see what customers are using is essential to driving, once again, adoption, retention, and expansion. Okay, last couple of slides here. So I say know the customer success manager profile you're after. We haven't nailed it. I purposely didn't put points on this spectrum. We're sort of experimenting with what's right. I will say some surprises along the way on hunter versus farmer. We're more on the farmer end of the spectrum. I think most people would agree with that. Boaz made a very good point around the importance of being passionate around customer success and not necessarily just passionate about the deal. I think that passion around customer success inherently makes people more of a farmer. This technical versus non-technical is interesting to me. So, as I said, through our adoption efforts, we've been much more focused on usage and proactively reaching out to customers this year. One thing that we found is our customer success managers who are relatively non-technical were able to increase usage a lot. So we pushed on that a little bit. We're like, how? Our software, once again, security, data, and analytics, it gets pretty complex pretty quickly, networks, firewalls, the whole bit. And I was pushing them on like, well, you're talking to pretty technical end users. How are you helping them use our software? And the truth of the matter is, many software, if not the majority of software companies, are guilty of having way too many features and functions. And at the end of the day, if the customer's using the top 20 or 30% of those features, they're much better off than they would normally be. So our customer success managers, even though they're not that technical, they're pretty familiar with the top 20 or 25% of the features in the software, and most of the customers aren't using the top 20 or 25% of the features in our software. So through this, we've seen that you can get away with more towards the non-technical end of the spectrum and have a very successful customer success manager. We've also bolstered a little bit by having a couple of people on the team that are very technical that they can refer to. Junior versus senior, same kind of thing. We've been really surprised if you get a good junior person with good aptitude, good attitude, passion for customer success, can learn quickly, how successful they can be. And then finally, this team versus self. Once again, it's very, very important to be able to mobilize different functions within the organization and be very good at bringing those resources together to help out customers. So that's it. Once again, top-down commitment's key. Understand and socialize the balance between adoption, retention, and expansion. And once again, understand and socialize what kind of profile you're after. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much. Round of applause, please, for our great presenters. Great, so we've got about 12 minutes. I want to make sure we get the audience engaged as soon as possible. So who has a question burning inside of them about how to structure and manage a customer success team? There are a handful of microphones around the floor. If anyone has questions, please raise your hand. We will get you a microphone.
Thanks. I have a question for the entire audience, if I may. I'd like to know how many people have organizations like these gentlemen have, where you have services and support as well as customer success managers all under that organizational umbrella versus customer success managers who operate independently. So who has operators independently, customer success managers, versus the ones who have more of an org structure like these guys?
Looks like the vast majority have a far more complex organizational structure.
Okay.
I would say this is a new field. So we each use words that are clear in our minds and are different in other people's minds. When you say customer success manager, you have a certain profile in mind. Each one of us and a lot of people in the room have different views over that. For me, my team is customer success management. All of it is. For you, it seems like it's a smaller, narrower, different thing. That's part of what we all need to figure out. What's your future state, where you are today, how you evolve into that?
That was sort of the point, is that evolution. Thanks. And go Blackhawks.
Great, another question from the audience?
Table stakes content. So when you equip and enable these guys, how do you think about what kind of material you create for them to help them be more effective in what they do?
Yeah, I'll start. So you asking about how do we enable the customer success management team? Yeah, it's somewhere between sales and sales engineering. So they're getting, a little bit to Boaz's point, it's somewhere between sales engineering, and support. Meaning they're getting some of the support, soft skills training of how to deal with customers. They're getting slightly more technical than the sales guys, and they're getting some of the commercial training that sales gets.
One of the things I thought that was unique about both your customer success structures was that you both have knowledge teams under your management that create a lot of the content. Can you talk about how those knowledge teams empower your customer success managers to be more successful?
Yeah, sure. So to me, this is part of the evolution of your team over time, right? We didn't have a knowledge team when we started. But as we grew, we found that it's useful to extract someone from the team and then build a team around them to take out the creation of tools that help us do our job better, right? When I started, I was managing some of the customers. I had different people doing different things. We created our own tools. Over time, it became better to have someone that consolidated the knowledge across teams. And then what they were able to do is, A, get best practices in knowledge management involved, B, create consistency across the team, and C, create tools that sometimes are different from what we use internally to what we enable customers, but it's under one framework, so it's easier, more scalable to manage.
Yeah, Boaz's word around evolving is a good one. And I was smiling a little bit because our knowledge team within support is evolving. And the beautiful part about, I think, putting it within support right now is they have a very big incentive to make that good knowledge. Because they're getting 20,000 calls right now, and they prefer to get fewer than 20,000 calls. And the better learning assets and knowledge base they create, the less stress there'll be on their team. So, as I said, there's a nice built-in incentive there, number one. And then the other thing about having the services organization under the same umbrella is we minimize the wars between services trying to charge for training and some training assets being for free. Because once again, people are trying to figure out what's best for the customer and what's most cost effective, and we can figure that out in the family, so to speak.
Terrific. Another question from the audience. Who's got a question?
Just curious about your thoughts on ownership of renewals, right? There's the one school of thought that says CSMs can own it and be incentivized to own renewals. And then there's the other component where you can manage that with sales or inside sales, kind of preserving the consultant relationship with customers. And just curious on your thoughts either way.
Yeah, so I guess you could say we're still a little bit old school. I should say that one thing that's somewhat unique about Rapid7 is we have an inside sales model to begin with, primarily, whereby 85-90% of our salespeople are inside salespeople. And then the customer success management team is an inside team as well. So, I'm trying to stay objective about this, but I'm biased towards the customer success management team owning it. I think if they take this approach that I was showing, whereby they're really focused on the purchase plus 90 days and adoption and helping customers through escalations or any problems that occur through their life cycle, then the the renewal just naturally follows. So I think it sits well there right now.
The way I think about it is, unless you are a very, very large company that has already majority of the potential customers as existing customers, right? Meaning if you're not there, you're in some form of a growth company where you have fewer customers and you want to get out, then there are two teams, theoretically, that can sell to the existing customers, but there's only one team that can grow to new customers. In my mind, if you're a small growing company and you want to grow more customers, you should divide and conquer. Focus the sales team on the target market that they are the only ones that can go after, get new deals, and let the existing customers be managed by the existing customers team. We call it customer management or whatever you want to call it. It's a divide and conquer. Some of it is maturity over time, where it'll change. We can talk about other reasons why this is valuable, but at a very fundamental level of managing a company, it's a divide and conquer.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the sooner you can get the salesperson away from the adoption and get them onto that next customer, it's easy as a salesperson, if you're there, living off those renewals and farming that. And once again, obviously for much larger, for organizations that have $1 million per year engagements with customers, it can change a little bit. But I agree with Boaz's sort of divide and conquer approach on the land and expand side. And I haven't seen situations where the customer doesn't trust the customer success manager. Sometimes that exists with sales, but usually that customer success manager has built up enough goodwill and enough of a relationship that the customer doesn't feel like they're getting worked for the renewal or worked for the upsell by that person.
The follow-up question that you should have is, so assuming we hand off the commercial renewal expansion to the existing customer team, how do we get the salespeople to agree to that? Especially in the SaaS model where it's a land and expand. The initial deal is always smaller than the one you want to have because you want them to close the deal quicker, right? And the way to that is double commission for some portion of time. So in our organization, the salespeople get comped on anything that happened with that customer for another year. The renewal, the add-on, anything. So there's no question about it. If I'm a salesperson and I sold a deal and someone else is going to go and expand, that's free money. I can now go and do something else.
So talking about evolution for the way that you're structuring your teams, obviously it's easy enough to implement with new customers that don't know any different. But with existing clients, how do you implement the new structure without adversely impacting the relationship that you already built with existing customers and clients?
Yeah, I'll start that. So we have a lot of customers that got a lot of calls from people at Rapid7 and they had no idea who did what. So clarifying for them who's who in the zoo and who's responsible for what and what their primary responsibility is built our relationship and improved our relationship with a lot of existing customers.
If you believe the new structure is better, then tell the customer why it's better. If they push back on it, then you probably got it wrong.
So one of the things that you guys haven't mentioned is, you've evolved the CSM and you're debating kind of who owns the upsell and expansion. How do you think about that in terms of like career track and development for a CSM? Because, that's one of the hardest things, especially with the competition right now with member success. So I guess I just wanted to see how you guys think about that. Is that a more senior role in the CSM world where they're actually running like that second voice, and just elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've taken from and given to sales. So we've had some sales reps become CSMs, and we had a customer success manager go be a regional director. And that's great as far as I'm concerned. And it's allowed sort of, depending on where people fall on those different spectrums, for them to land in their correct spot. We've also talked about with or a couple CSMs in particular about moving into project management roles within the services organization. So we're big fans of moving people within functions internally, and it's provided a pretty good platform for them to pull people in or send them off to different functions so far.
How about moving people up within the organization? How does that happen?
Within the CSM
Within the
organization?
CSM world, yeah.
I mean,
If you're a growing organization, you will have new roles, both hierarchical and sideways, right? That knowledge management function did not exist initially, it exists now. We have a new leadership role in global team that did not exist before because we grew to the point where we wanted to have a leader around that team.
And do you find that the middle management or the more senior leaders within customer success, are those best promoted from within or hired from outside?
You have to have a balance. I think this is true at every level of the company, right? If you're a growing company and all the growth comes from the outside, you'll demoralize internal people. If all the growth comes from the inside, you're not infusing new enough talent from the outside. You have to have balance. That's true at the company level, that's true at every team level, it's true at our level as well.
yeah, I would agree. I mean, we're biased towards internal promotions whenever possible. And to your first question, Tomasz, around promotion within CSM, I mean, it's whoever has all of those skills. So if they have the soft skills and the commercial instincts and the technical skills, they naturally have a broader skill set that allows them to do more and mentor more people in that direction.
Great, thank you so much. That's all the time we have for today. Could I have a big round of applause for the panelists? Thank you very much.